Page 88, The Entertainer. At the top of the page, they're explaining a type of music called ragtime music. A lot of fun. I have a lot of fun with ragtime, boogie-woogie, blues, all these kinds of things. This is a very popular piece. I like this arrangement. Most of the method books, they have real simple arrangements. They do okay, but this arrangement is much more involved. Hopefully it's not too difficult for you. Take it nice and slow and easy, one hand at a time, and work out the fingerings carefully. You should be okay. Biggest problem I have when I hear people play this piece is they will inevitably play it way too fast. They just want to zip along. Some ragtime music is fast, that's okay, but this particular piece is not a fast ragtime piece. So, and even in the top that says not too fast, it's just because people tend to play it too fast. They just want to. No, it just kind of goes along leisure. Just keep it nice and leisurely. Now when we learn to play it, we got to go really super slow, because you got to make sure you got the right notes and the right rhythms and work out the fingerings and all that stuff. There's no pedal in this. It needs to kind of bounce along. You think, well, we like contrast in music. Where's the contrast? Well, there is some in here, and I'll point it out when the time comes. Now, I want to start with the right hand. Let's just go over the right hand very carefully. For the most part, you just finger it the way they've got it, and look out because your hands are going to be moving around. But I'm going to make a few suggestions. Starting on page 88 in the second line, I'm going to talk about the last two measures. In the right hand, that half note C, you can play with the fifth finger. It just happens to be there. Tied over to a quarter note C, so you can hold it down for 3 counts. They're saying for the eighth notes to do a 2-1, and then cross over to do the 2 on the F sharp and the 1 on the A. Unnecessary. I don't like crossing over the thumb if I don't have to. Nothing wrong with it, I just prefer not to. So I suggest the fingering is here. You're starting out with the little finger on the half note, C again. But this time, I recommend you do a third finger on the A. It's there, why not use it? Then a 2 on the G, and go ahead and this time use a thumb on the F sharp. Not crazy about a thumb on a black key, but sometimes it works out better. And in this case, just put it on there. And then second finger on the A. And you're back to where you were. I think that's easier here, because I'm not crossing over the thumb. The tricky part of this is when you're up here and you got to go the second finger from the G to the A. There's a black note you got to go over, right? Then up at the top of page 89, last two measures again. You're playing the G with the fourth finger. Because of what happened before, trust me, you're going to use fourth finger on the G. Then little finger on the eighth note A, and thumb. So I'm not changing it, I'm just pointing it out. You're going to crunch your hand up. And that puts you in position for, they're saying 5, 4, 2, 1. And that works out, so I recommend stick with that fingering. So yeah, there you're going to cross over, because you want your thumb on the A in the last measure, because that puts you in position for all those eighth notes. And it works out. Then go down to the third line down. In the right hand you have those 3 B's in the first measure there, here. We're back to the repeated note things. I would prefer to play different fingers if I can on repeated notes. When you get nervous or you get in a hurry or whatever, you have a better chance of doing it correctly if you will use different fingers on repeated notes. If you use the same finger on a repeated note and you're nervous or whatever, there's a chance you won't play all the notes. You'll miss them. It won't hit. It just doesn't work very well. I speak from experience on that one. So on those 3 B's, instead of fifth finger on all of them, I'm going to suggest you do a 5-4-5. Now that takes a little bit of practice to get used to, but you just as well start getting used to this kind of thing. And eventually get to the point where you can do it without looking at the keyboard. On the fourth line down, the fingering there in the first couple measures is like the fingering we just talked about up above. The G, the first note in the first measure of the fourth line, this is page 89, right? Okay. Then fifth finger and then 1. And then again you come down, it's 5, 4, 2, 1. Then in the next to the last measure, or the third measure over on the fourth line, the eighth notes. It's a 1, 2, 1. That's okay. We kind of got to do that. Then in the last line, first measure, I like that fingering. They're using fourth finger on the E. Because all those notes together make a chord, and that's the fingering for the chord. So let's use that. Second measure. This is awkward because in the first measure, the last note, you're playing with the thumb. Yeah. And now they want you to do a 1, 2 on this. It's doable. It's unnecessary. So I would recommend you, from the thumb, you do a 2, 3, and then you can do 1, 4, and then use their fingering for that on the here. 1, 5, 2, 5, 1, 4. Left hand. Left hand, you play it the way they've got it written. It really works out nicely. So there's a couple minor things I want to point out. Over on page 88, last line. All along here, this whole page, in fact this whole piece, it kind of bounces. You kind of separate the notes. Not staccato, just separate the notes. Well, when you get down to the last line, starting in the second measure, when you have these, I would suggest, it's an interpretive thing, I would suggest you hang on to the first and third beats of each of these measures. Connect them. Make them sound like half notes. So it kind of walks down the piano that way. The technical term for this is actually finger pedaling. We're pedaling it with the finger rather than using the pedal. We're hanging on to a note longer than it's written. It's written as a quarter note, it gets 1 count. And you lift it up when you play the E, the next note. But I'm suggesting you hang on to it for the first 2 beats while you play the E, and then connect it to the next one. So we get that line connected like that. Then on page 89, third line down, look at the first measure is fine, it's here. But the second measure, they want you to put the thumb on the G. Well, you got the thumb on the C. So you got to come down here? No. I suggest for the second measure, you play the first quarter note, the G, with the second finger. Then bring the thumb under and play the next note. Then use the third finger on the next note. Because then you're back in position. It just helps. It helps. All right, it's like this. Starting with the first measure. Because you're going to connect those. When you get notes that are in a row or next to each other like that, you can interpret them in such a way that you can connect them. A little bit about the roadmap. You see at the beginning of this, page 88, there's a little squiggly do sign there and the double bar there at the beginning. When you see that sign, you know there's a DS someplace. Now you don't know if it's a DS Alfini or DS Alcoda or what it is, but there's a DS someplace. Well, look at the bottom of page 89, and sure enough, the last line down there, you see a DS Alcoda. So, DS means go back to the sign, which is that squiggly do thing at the top of page 88. Gonna go back to there, and we're gonna go down to the coda sign. The coda sign is located at the bottom of page 88 in the last measure. It says to coda, The words are not necessary. All they need is a sign, the circle with the crosshairs in it. So when you finish that measure, you're immediately going to jump to the coda, and the coda is at the bottom of page 89, and the coda happens to be one measure long, but that's, you jump over there and play that measure and you're done. And that's the roadmap. You do the dynamics. You're starting out soft, and then a couple measures later you crescendo up to an F. It's like a statement and an answer. The statement is, and then later the answer is, and then next line you come back down to the statement soft, and then another statement. So put in these louds and softs when you play it. It makes a difference. Now you hear this rag so much, you probably just know the rhythm by listening to it, but it's important that you understand the written music. So I want to explain this rhythm and make sure you can count it out correctly, even though you may know what it is. Starting with the first full measure there where the squiggly do sign is. It is eighth note, quarter note, eighth note. So we're going 1 and 2 and 3, etc. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, and then it's tied over. Now, it helps a little bit that the left hand is playing even quarter notes because those are the beats. And if you look at the way the notes line up, you'll see that the right hand is playing notes in between the quarter notes in the left hand. So it is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And once you get that, that's pretty much it. That's the only really tricky part in here was you can grab that. There's a few variations of it, but you'll get them. Please be able to count this out correctly when you need to. Let's try this out slowly together. Now we're going to go really, really, really slow. You can speed it up on your own. There's lots of recordings of this so you can find it. Real slow. Now I'm not going to do the dynamics. I just want you to hear the notes and the rhythms and all. That's what we're checking here. You do the dynamic. There is a pickup beat. Those 2 eighth notes at the beginning is a pickup beat. So we are going to do 3 beat count up, 1, ready, go, and then you take off. So hands here, here, 1, 2, and go, and. See, this sound